After months of waiting and wondering, we now know the state of Washington has reasons to rescind Dr. Ryan Cole's medical license. The Central District Health Board member faces a list of charges, including fraud and malpractice. Can there be sanctuary cities in Idaho when it comes to the abortion ban enforcement? Maybe, but not without significant financial repercussions if one bill makes it through the Idaho State House. Oh yeah, you see this coming down your street? It could be a little scary. The Nampa Police Department is looking to demilitarize a little bit by replacing its military-style armored vehicle with something a little more friendly. So why did they have it in the first place? Do you know ballpark or even a specific number how many you prescribed?
Couple hundred, and 95% have been better in 24 to 48 hours.
That was Dr. Ryan Cole on the day he was confirmed as the lone physician on the Central District Health Board. He took the place of Dr. Ted Epperly, whose tenure was not renewed by Ada County commissioners after 15 years, because as Commissioner Ryan Davidson said, I think Dr. Ryan Cole has some interesting ideas. Well, that day, August 17th, 2021, Dr. Ryan Cole spoke to us from the Boise airport on his way to spread some of those ideas. Ideas that have now officially earned him a statement of charges from the Washington Medical Commission. The statement of charges is basically a list of accusations based on and put together after investigating complaints filed with that commission. Dr. Cole, who is a board-certified anatomic and clinical pathologist and has a laboratory in Garden City, has been a licensed physician and surgeon in the state of Washington since June of 2007. Those charges against him were released today, and they lay out why the Washington Medical Commission believes Dr. Cole had a widespread negative impact on the health and well-being of our communities. The 11-page report claims Dr. Cole made numerous false and misleading statements during public presentations regarding the coronavirus pandemic, COVID-19 vaccines, the use of ivermectin to treat COVID-19, and the effectiveness of masks, saying they were harmful and dangerous to people who wore them, and generally generating mistrust in the medical profession and in public health, the statement read. And then it goes on to give specifics. The commission listed 19 times Dr. Cole said things that were either misleading or flat out lies, such as, quote, children survive COVID at 100%, or asymptomatic spread is, quote, infinitesimally small. Ivermectin is a, quote, known antiviral medication, end quote. Or the spike protein in the vaccine is a toxin, and there's no evidence masks prevent the spread of the virus. Those are just a few examples. In fact, Dr. Cole claimed masks increase retained carbon dioxide in people's bodies. The statement also pointed out the times he said stuff like this.
What we have right now is an experimental biological gene therapy immune modulatory injection. mRNA trials in mammals have led to odd cancers. mRNA trials on mammals have led to autoimmune diseases, not right away, 6, 9, 12 months later. 50% of healthcare providers are absolutely not getting this injection, and that's a reason. We don't trust the data.
I don't even like calling it a vaccine. An investigational vaccine. A fake vaccine, okay. I can a clot shot, a needle rape, whatever you want to call it.
This is a dangerous gene-based shot that is not a vaccine. We cannot scientifically recommend this to anybody. I mean, I am adamant about this. This is the hill I will die on. The children are a no-go with this shot.
Okay, so that last sound was from a Central District Health Board meeting in May of last year. Dr. Cole wasn't able to attend that meeting in person because he was in London, spreading more of his interesting ideas. The statement of charges then went into specifics on how Dr. Cole prescribed medications to 4 different patients, something the medical commission called negligent because, they say, Dr. Cole prescribed medications not approved for a COVID infection. He failed to properly document justification for those prescriptions, didn't advise those patients of other treatments available, and treated those patients beyond his competency level. In other words, he was doing stuff a pathologist shouldn't be doing. They also claim Dr. Cole didn't document any medical history of these patients, nor did he perform a physical exam on them because, the charges claim, he did it all over text message, not in person and not over video in a telehealth session. The 4 patients detailed in these charges covers their interaction with Dr. Cole during the summer of 2021, from June and July, right before he got appointed to the CDH board. And all 4 of those, for all of them, Dr. Cole prescribed ivermectin, just based on information they told him over an instant message chat format, which is not allowed based on the standard of care in Washington. One of those patients, identified as patient C on July 6th, complained she had energy issues and felt like she was having a heart attack. This is someone who had no history with Dr. Cole, just reached out to him out of the blue, asking for ivermectin. According to the statement, it was prescribed by Dr. Cole, who said it may help with her energy issues. Dr. Cole then also allegedly told her if ivermectin did not help her, he would prescribe a steroid to help with the energy thing, which is not a standard treatment for such conditions. He apparently didn't even ask her about her heart issues. Then when the pharmacy failed to fill her ivermectin prescription, patient C tried to follow up with Dr. Cole, and he never responded, which is the same claim from another patient. The Dr. Cole prescribed ivermectin and then ghosted them. He didn't provide any follow-up care. So these are the 4 official charges against Dr. Ryan Cole from the Washington State Medical Commission, based on unprofessional conduct, a violation of state code which entails any act of depravity, dishonesty, or corruption, incompetence, negligence, or malpractice, which results in an injury to a patient, misrepresentation or fraud in any aspect of the medical profession, and even interference with an investigation or disciplinary proceeding by willful misinterpretation or misrepresentation of facts. I did ask what this last charge meant, if Dr. Cole interfered with this investigation in any way, and we have not yet heard back. Now, these are only statement of charges against Dr. Cole. As of now, no action has been taken with regard to his medical license in Washington. Dr. Cole has until January 30th to respond. And as for what that response might be, we did reach out to ask, but we were told Dr. Cole was traveling out of country for the next week, again with the interesting ideas, and he's unavailable for comment. He and his attorney are working on a response to the Washington charges, including presenting scientific data to support his claims and patient care practices. We do know he has previously referred to complaints and public attacks as politically motivated. We also know, despite a complaint being filed against Dr. Cole with the Idaho Medical Association, that case was closed without any action being taken. And even if there was, we likely wouldn't know what that would be because of Idaho's rules to protect doctors that keep such things quiet. We are only 10 days into the 2023 legislative session, what one could call the idea phase, if you will. A step above brainstorming, probably, because most of these ideas are, for the most part, pretty much fleshed out. Well, sure, there are some who just need some flourishes and some who just get immediately flushed. But this is where the ideas start, in committees. And it's during these early days where you can kind of get a pulse on what debates and possible laws might be headed our way for the next several weeks. Joe Paris is following a trio of these ideas for us. And so, Joe, we want to know what is going on at the State House today.
Well, there's a lot going on down there, Brian. We're going to take a look at a few things here and, budgets, presentations, a lot of things going on right now, the early phases of the legislative session. But let's start with some legislation that would penalize local governments around Idaho for not enforcing Idaho's criminal abortion laws. Republican Representative Bruce Skog of Nampa pitched the idea. Today, it got a full committee hearing with public testimony. Long story short for you, the bill that Representative Skog is pitching would see cities who put out a policy of not enforcing Idaho's criminal abortion laws that lose out on tax dollars. And this bill is in reference to situations like in the city of Boise. If you missed it, Boise put out a policy last year that basically says they wouldn't prioritize using any city resources to investigate claims of illegal abortion in the city of Boise. So if this law passed, Boise would be forced to rescind that policy within 180 days, or they would have their tax dollars withheld. So public testimony was mostly in favor of the idea this morning, but here's a taste of both sides.
We believe the public officials, cities, counties, and their governing bodies should be held to the same standards as the general public. We, the people, are required to comply with Idaho's laws. If we fail to comply, we face penalties. So why should elected officials or municipalities be exempt from following laws? They should not.
I'm urging you to let entities set their own decisions on what is important for their people. Yes, laws have to be followed, but I think that what you're looking at is setting how they need to do different things, and they do need to prioritize what is working for different areas, and that's going to be different for different parts of the state. Thank you.
So I reached out to the city of Boise for insight on the topic, and a spokesperson tells me that the city is watching the legislation and the conversation around it closely. That's really they can all do right now. because really it's in the early phases. They can't act. But as it progresses, the city will have to decide where they go depending on if the bill progresses. Now, the legislation passed committee. It now goes to the full House, one of the first to do so this legislative session. So that was in the House. Over on the Senate side of things, the Senate State Affairs, early this morning, a legislative pitch from Senator Dan Foreman, a Republican from Moscow. He wants to see a section of Idaho code that deals with militias parading in public with weapons repealed. Now, this is an effort that we saw last year. It did fail, but last year was more about cleaning up Idaho code from the perspective of the Idaho Military Division. This year, though, the tone is about the content of the law from a non-military perspective. And Senator Dan Foreman, he made the point that Idaho Code Section 46802, it restricts First and Second Amendment rights, in his opinion, to gather as a group in public and to carry guns. Now, that current Idaho Code, which you're looking at right here, it makes it illegal for a, quote, body of men to associate together as a military company or organization or parade in public with firearms in any city or town of this state unless they're called into service of the state. Also of note, there is no real enforcement mechanism in this law. Still, critics of repealing the code say that it's an important message to keep in Idaho law, and crucial that Idaho law includes this message to militias that maybe they're not welcome. And Senator James Ruchti asked Senator Foreman for clarification on the law.
Is it your understanding that by repealing this statute, it would allow an armed militia to parade through the streets of Sandpoint? It would allow the Aryan nations to parade with firearms in Coeur d'Alene?
Senator Foreman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, yes, that's my understanding, but I appreciate the question. It's an intelligent question, and I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to respond to that if somebody did bring it up. It wouldn't allow Aryan nations or a skinhead group or neo-Nazis to march armed. It would allow all Americans to do so. And they are Americans, and as long as they, as much as I disagree with their ideologies, I'll support all day their right to exercise their constitutional rights. And what you asked about, and quite rightly, is has happened and is happening and will keep happening. I know in my town of Moscow, where I served as a police officer for a long time, we had armed groups who were, I think the average Idahoan would say they were a little distasteful. We allowed them to march because it's their constitutional right, this law notwithstanding. So I understand your concern, but the overarching concern, I think, is constitutional rights. And in a free society, we, quite frankly, just have to put up with some folks that we may disagree with, but we have to stand for their rights as well.
So to be clear, there are other parts of Idaho law that cover militias and concerns of terrorism, namely Idaho Code 18-8103 and the Idaho Constitution, by the way, Article 1, Section 12. However, again, some believe that the specific statute being discussed is still a powerful message and a part of law to deter dangerous behavior. Others say because there's no real enforcement mechanism attached to the code, there's no assignment of criminal liability, so no law enforcement can even really enforce that provision anyways. But the legislation was introduced. It will soon get a full committee hearing with public testimony. Brian, I know that last year this is something that some of our viewers might remember us talking about. Sure. Last year, the Idaho Military Division brought this forward as a part of a goal from Governor Little to cut red tape. Right. It failed. It stopped in the Senate. It did pass the Idaho House, but it's a major conversation about the practicalities of law and the messages of law and really, what the difference is.
So what's changed? I mean, the Senate's changed a little bit, but it made it through the Senate this time as opposed to not. And basically, I guess what they're saying is, well, if we're all out there carrying guns, then it's hard to differentiate between who's a militia and who's not. Yeah, and there, again, people are concerned about militias overstepping their bounds or going too far. There are other parts of the law that deal with it, and there's a major opinion from the Idaho Military Division because of this law falling under their subsection that they can't really do anything about this anyways. I find it interesting, too, going back to, speaking of guns, going back to the sanctuary city thing. No mention of how many cities in Idaho declared themselves Second Amendment sanctuary cities and how they are okay with that. Yeah, I can say that Representative Skog did say in a prior meeting, not today, that he'd like to go after other types of, topics, not just abortion, but gun control may be one that he would take up as well. We'll see. I'm going to say I doubt that. All right. All right. I'll ask him. Thanks, Joe. You got it.
What does to protect and serve look like? It can be a little intimidating.
which is why the Nampa Police Department is scaling back a bit, and it starts with its largest armored vehicle. Police exist for the sole purpose of, keeping our communities safe. Likewise, police officers have to keep themselves safe, and it's a balance of these two priorities which has led to what is often referred to as the militarization of our police. This escalated under President George H.W. Bush in 1990 when he pioneered a precursor to the 1033 program. And under that program, police departments can receive surplus military equipment, stuff they're not even using anymore, for free. Some Treasure Valley police departments, they embraced that opportunity, while others, well, they were a little bit more hesitant. Now, the Nampa Police Department, who took up on this offer, they're looking to replace their military-style armored vehicle for a friendlier option, or with a friendlier option. And you know what? It's not cheap. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Scenes like this aren't unheard of for Treasure Valley police departments.
We do about 24 callouts a year between search warrants or our middle-of-the-night activations or daytime activations, whatever it may be.
That's why Nampa Police Lieutenant Chad Shepard says it's necessary to have an armored vehicle.
Lives are in danger. If we have a scenario where we have to respond to protect the community in any fashion, the armored vehicle goes with us.
This one's specifically called an MRAP, a mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicle. Nampa PD's had theirs since 2013.
The MRAP, like I say, was just a stopgap because we couldn't afford anything else in the city.
That's because this was free, granted by the federal government as a military surplus.
There was a lot of community support, and then there was people who in the community who did not appreciate the vehicle being here. The reality of it is our officers needed some sort of protection.
And we don't want to just get something because it's free. You want to be able to get something that really fits your mission as patrol officers and as a police department in your community.
That's then Meridian Deputy Police Chief Tracy Bastrachea back in 2014. When departments, including Caldwell and Nampa, brought in MRAPs, Meridian pushed them away.
We knew it immediately what we wanted our image to be to our community and what type of equipment we wanted to utilize.
A combination of image and functionality is now telling Nampa Police it's time for change.
It's not the most friendly vehicle.
It's not cheap to replace either. Lieutenant Shepard says the solution is a Lenco Bearcat, the same vehicle used by Boise Police and the Ada County Sheriff's Office. This costs roughly $377,000.
And they remain resident in our fund balance and available for use one time.
During Tuesday's City Council meeting, Lieutenant Shepard asked the city to buy a Bearcat with surplus funds.
Partly because of underspent capital on other vehicles and partly because of some reduced labor and operating costs, but we ended up with more than sufficient funds to cover this Bearcat.
The Nampa City Council unanimously approved the request.
If we had our preference back then when the MRAP came online, we would have had a Bearcat then, but it just wasn't an option. We do our best to serve with the equipment provided and bring our officers home safe at night. So if we have to have an armored vehicle, then that's the case.
Lieutenant Shepard says the Bearcat is narrowly tailored toward their goals, specifically as police. It is armored in its shell, and it has more room inside to protect anyone who maybe is hurt at a scene or do whatever it is they need to tactic-wise, maybe perhaps in a SWAT situation. More room, they say that certainly helps. The MRAP also had ongoing maintenance costs from previous use and damage because it was a military vehicle at one point that was in use by the U.S. military. And it seems this is a route locally that a lot of police departments are going. Mentioned in the story that the Ada County Sheriff's Office is not using the MRAPs anymore. They have Bearcats. Boise Police has Bearcats as well. We talked about Meridian. Well, their SWAT is through the Ada County Sheriff's Office. So it seems that this Bearcat seems to be a more common option.
And is it based on functionality, or is it really because of, well, I guess how it's perceived?
I believe it's part of it. You know, you saw Tracy Bastrachea saying back in 2014, certainly his hesitancy is because of the perception of it. But moreover, it is bigger inside. There is more they can do with it for their needs specifically. And like the heavy armored stuff that the military might be using, certainly no function to local police departments. And that's not even in use either, to be clear. They couldn't do that if they wanted to, but it fits their needs, more narrowly tailored.
Really quickly, why couldn't they sell it? I mean, that could be a fun, backwoods kind of ride.
I don't know the exact reason, maybe part of the program, but they said in that city council meeting they can't sell it. So that just wasn't an option.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Well, you've probably heard of it by now. There's a winter storm advisory that's in effect, 1 to 3 inches of snow. That's what it has in the advisory starting late this evening through the traffic time tomorrow morning. I think probably some of the larger surges will be in the middle of the night, so we have to watch those roads. Okay, that's for tomorrow, kind of ending toward noontime, okay, as this thing starts to decrease. And just to show you here on this one chart of this map, you can see the snow in the morning. Just so that you prepare for that, keep in mind that Jim Duthie, of course, will be here at 5 o'clock in the morning. He'll be watching the storm as well to get you the very latest information. After that, you'll see how it starts to decrease during the day. And surprisingly enough, by the time we get into evening, we could be seeing some stars out there with some clear skies and the temperatures that are going to be getting really chilly through the weekend and into next week. So here's your futurecast and the timing of the storm. You can see the blue area is the snow. And so this is by about 11 o'clock this evening. That snow could be reaching Boise, maybe even a little earlier, but it's lighter. Then when I show you this blue area through here, that's a little heavier. That's 5 o'clock in the morning. That moves to the Boise area between about 5 to 7:30. So you see the timing on that. It just shows these showers that will be moving through. Still coming in from the north, even by about 12:30, just a few light snow showers. But still, most of this snow, as you notice, is out here toward Twin Falls, even around 12:30 or so. So let's move ahead to the 7-day forecast. So for tomorrow, this is the winter advisory. So this is what we're letting you know early tomorrow morning. Be very careful. There could be some gusty winds, kind of blustery winds for tomorrow afternoon as it gets cold, and it gets cold for the rest of the week. Look at that. Monday morning down to 18. Same thing for Saturday morning.
Really quickly, let's get to your comments like this one sent in. Laws passed by any legislature are only as strong as the money appropriated to enforce those laws. Otherwise, a law is simply a political statement. That's a pretty good, accurate statement there. Legislatures want citizens to be accountable to follow all laws, abortion, etc. What about the Meridian mom that Labrador says doesn't have to? Hypocrisy, says CLC in Meridian. And this one here, what could possibly go wrong with a bunch of armed marchers asking for a friend, says Kim. We'll see you tomorrow.